Call to order the Lowell City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, October 4th at 7:04. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Stratus.
Present.
Councilor Weathers.
Here.
Councilor Murray. Here. Councilor Harris is absent.
Right, we have a forum. And with that, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, any changes they'd like to see in the agenda? Hearing none, seeing none. That agenda, we don't have one. Public comments, anything from the public?
Yes,
Okay.
my name's Ulrika, 62 East Third. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm getting very, very upset. I would like to see you guys take a little more pride in this town because it's becoming quite a ghetto. I know that we're supposed to make a quarterly sweep of this town, figure out who's breaking the city codes, and I know that hasn't been done in ages. I'd like to see the city council and the mayor be a little more proactive on this situation. You know, I've been talking about it, but you look at me like, well, it's the first we heard about it. This place is getting downright trash, and I'd like to see you guys read through the city codes and then take a tour of this town and jot down who's violating what, and then damn deal with it instead of doing nothing about it. Thanks.
Any questions for him? Okay, thank you. Council comments. No staff reports, public hearings, no old business, new business, page 4. Yes. Accepting the resignation for Mary Wallace. How are you going to introduce that?
I received a resignation letter from Mary Wallace. She's been on the planning commission for several years. She's going to be unable to continue her service on the planning commission due to some personal reasons. I have her letter in your packet, and I'm requesting that the council accept this resignation so that the official records reflect that.
Is she going to stay in town or do you know?
She's going to remain in town.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the wall for this recognition letter.
Sorry. Okay. We have a motion by Jimmy, second by Tim, to receive the resignation of Mary Wallace. Discussion, thoughts, questions? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the resignation of Mary Wallace, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. You served a long time.
She has, and she's been a good planning commissioner. She always shows up prepared and she asks great questions. So a loss to us.
Or for whatever the reason, our thoughts are waivers.
I'll do that.
Okay. Next up on page 6, line viewers. Discussion. Discussion on meeting agenda, timetable, or timeline and process. They asked us to put on here. Also, I asked to speak first about the packet production calendar presented by Mr. Powell and his activity report and in our regular meeting packet. I'd like to get Mr. Cotto's input before opening up for council discussion for what I have to say. I prefer the current method that has been used for years. The primary goal, though, is to have everyone prepared to discuss and decide issues. Secondary goal is to minimize the hours that city administrators spend producing packets. If there's a need for more time to review packets, then I would like to offer the following. 11 days prior, or the second Friday before the regular meeting, the city administrator sends a draft packet of materials to the council for initial viewing. 6 days prior or Wednesday before the meeting, send out additional information to update that packet. If necessary, a council person may request more additional information or extra time for review. If needed, the item may be removed from the planned agenda scheduled for the next regular meeting or presentation in a special meeting. We've had 3 special meetings this year. 4 days prior or on Friday before the meeting, the agenda packet is published as currently done. During the council meeting, if anyone felt that they weren't prepared to discuss and decide an issue, it should be tabled. A special meeting should be scheduled or action delayed until the next regular meeting. Again, I prefer to stay with what we are working with now, but I'd like to hear Mr. Cottle's input for what I offered.
Thank you, Mayor. I could, in this essence, from what I'm understanding from what you're proposing, Mr. Mayor, is almost an additional review period for packet materials, and then so that would be 2 Fridays before the regular meeting. And then anything that would come in after that would be put out to council as soon as possible. And if there are any requests to hold that item until a later meeting, due to there not being enough time, that's how we would proceed. If that's what I'm understanding, then I would support it. Excuse me. I would support that approach, and I would echo the primary goal that you had of ensuring everybody has enough time to show up prepared. This is my opportunity to check in with the council to get your input. My job is to make sure you get the information you need when you need it, so you can make good decisions. If additional time is needed, I've outlined the process here to achieve that. And I would also support the process that we outlined as well. And one thing I would note that I'll echo that the mayor just mentioned is, even if there are no changes, the council has at its disposal the ability to postpone action. Council has not been shy about using that ability to, and there's a benefit, I guess you could say, of having first pass at something and then postponing it to the next regular meeting. So I will put that out there as well.
The main thing I was looking at was the time sensitive items that, quite often, words about the library or whatever, that we need to act upon, that those get included in the packet before it's closed off. So that's a little bit concern-minded. I think we've had 3 special meetings, but I don't want to have extra ones or here. I don't want that to be part of our format or our whole game. Let's do what we do, get in and get out. I'll open it up to questions. Comments.
To me, I'm happy with the current situation, but I also feel that I want to make sure that every counselor has a comfortable period of review for any items. So I would rather go with extending the period if that satisfies all the counselor's needs to be able to assess the material and consume it and have that time to make to give them to make the decisions that they feel are right and they're comfortable with the period of time we've had to look at the material. So I'm willing to go longer if other people feel they need to.
I'm also happy with the current system, but would be willing to support and whatever councilors need. I do acknowledge your comments on the potential impact of more time if we start changing the schedule and how Fridays work for you. And I echo the mayor's comment that I want to avoid increasing special meetings, not because of our workload. That is true, your workload. But I think special meetings have a limiting factor for public input. I don't want us to start a meeting on that and taking that opportunity away. I think having these scheduled meetings improves that.
I don't want special meetings to turn into regular.
Business out of the side. I don't have a problem with the current system either. My comment at the meeting that I think is what generated this, I'm quite surprised at the volume that was generated, and I'm sorry that you guys spent so much time on this, because my comment was, I don't have time to read through the whole packet and get my questions to you to have that pre-meeting before we get to Tuesday night. Sometimes I can't get to it till Tuesday. And it's always my goal to get questions to you ahead of time, so you're not surprised and so you can come with an answer. But what the process had been is to pester you, I call it pester because you have your weekends, is to pester you on weekends. Then you send the council all the questions that have been submitted and all the answers, and it's like, that's not a discussion, that's kind of, I'm thinking we're getting questions to you so that when we ask them at the meeting and have the discussion, maybe somebody else has the same question that might be in the audience, say, or other staff that aren't on the email stream. So, geez, it wasn't my point to upset the whole apple cart here with a comment about that. My only other question then is, you know, the timing, the one that I think was most distressful was on Labor Day weekend, and it was 250 plus pages. And it came to me before I left the house at 4. And it's a holiday weekend, and that was rough. Now, in looking at the packet, you know, I think possibly there's some things that were repetitive from a previous one. And so here's a question for you. Is the council packet twofold? One, obviously to give us, and one to provide a record for the public that isn't really part of the information we need to make the decision, but that it's relevant? I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, is there more in the packet that's kind of backing up, you know, the information regarding the whole thing that maybe can be excluded because it's already been seen, or it's supplementary, or is that included to make kind of just a more complete record? Or
Is there a particular example?
I'm thinking
I can think of a lot of examples.
Yeah, they like could be listed as an appendix or whatever, and so. Because usually you explain the things very well, you know, so we understand them, and then you know, see appendix 1 for water things, see appendix 2 for the other things, so, you know, I tell you what, reading through that, you just kind of, you're seeing words after a point, and you're not, and they're all good words, but you don't really get the I don't know all the ways, and I learned a whole lot. I haven't learned as much, put it that way, and learned some, but you know, it's just a lot in there. It's just, you know, when you open it up and it says 357 pages. It's taken me a week to read books that long.
interesting books.
Interesting books. No, but you know, how do you there's a need for you to put it in there, and there's a need for us to know, but you know, I don't know, a summary sheet or something, or what's in there. I don't know if I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm not asking for the whole thing to be turned upside down. The process is fine. I think we can just apply some common sense and be mindful of, you know, what we're doing.
Yeah, because
But I'm not gonna be able to get, I'm saying, if I don't get something until Friday night, that's 250 pages, it's likely I'm not gonna formulate all my questions and get that to you on Monday morning, so you can publish. It's not likely to happen.
I think maybe parsing out and looking forward to the future, and, you know, if you got a packet ready, if you got an agenda packet ready, and it's 300 and some pages, you know, or we know issues are coming up that are gonna add to the volume of the agenda, you know, or the packet. Maybe look at those and try to get those out of the way.
Yeah. take
Yeah,
that out.
Let's keep those.
I agree.
So instead of making everything, you know, an 11-day heads up on what's coming and extending that period, pick and choose when we have hot topics that are maybe require us to, you know, read them a little closer, read more material and try to get those out.
The water plant, the sewer plant goes on, you know, like that, for page after page, and they're not going to change, from second Friday to the council meeting, yeah, you set those out, and that way gives us more than ample time to take the action items, things like that. Hopefully the list, 100 pages of, you know, and even at that, if I get it, I usually set aside Sunday afternoon to going through it, but I don't send you an email until Monday morning, because you have your weekend, and I don't want you working on it. So, you know, now 8 o'clock in the morning, you make a handful of emails from me, and they'll all come in at once, but, I don't desire to, start having you answer, you know, on Sunday, I just don't want that. So we have some sort of, I think, like I say, stay with the current plan. If you get volume of things, things that's going to take quite a bit of reading, give us a little. It doesn't have, and it doesn't have to be on the second Friday before, as you get it, and you know it's going to be in the packet. Send it out, just say, you know, this is going to be packet, included in the packet. I give you kind of a heads up what's coming, and I think that way, that way it'll actually be read probably to a bit more depth. Time will be taken on it, but also the important, the major items, the ones that you look at, they will, I think, they'll get a little closer scrutiny than everything else. If you look at the 250 pages, and you go through one of those, then you get to an action item. You continue to go on. So, because she brought up some really great questions in the past. I've sat there and I've listened to that one question. Same with all the councils, you know, they thought, you know, wow. I read it, but I didn't receive that. So I think you got a good understanding for what the council wants. Okay.
Yeah, this is some great feedback, and I'm glad we had this conversation. What I'm understanding is if we have anything that's difficult or complicated or potentially controversial, then I should do my best to bump back as far as I can the deadline for people to get that to me, so I can give you kind of a.
Well, I would say you could look at it two ways, Jeremy. So if it's not something that's time sensitive for a decision from us, push it forward, but move it to the right. You know, move when we bring it to the meeting to the right, so that you're not like, oh, I got this topic coming up that's you know, it's a large topic, but you don't need necessarily to make a decision next Tuesday. Maybe push that to the next meeting after that. So taking when you bring the topics to us in terms of the response time that's needed for the decision into account, and making that decision of whether you got to rush to get it to us, so we got 6 days to look at it, or you can relax and go, okay, well, I really have 16 days or 18 days to get it to them, because I don't actually have to have a decision at the next council meeting. You know, kind of picking and choosing on that too, so that you're not always trying to get that out and, you know, rushing. So.
And the important thing about what he just said is that if we've got more time like that, then we can ask you questions and then get answers back at a controlled pace. And you can send out other counselors so that they can help see what's in there. What's in there. I think you're right. You're exactly what you did. I agree. Any other?
So just figure it all out.
Well, I was thinking like that water master plan, you know, that was a huge attachment in itself, and you probably had that electronically as a single document. So that would be something that you could kick out ahead of time and say, the topic is going to be to keep going forward on it. That here's the thing, and then, you know, then we'd have a chance to figure out what the context is of the decision we're going to make without going through the whole water plan or the city. That's the kind of things I was thinking would be more easily done, things that you already have separate.
Okay.
So instead of creating the whole agenda document, just send out the item that is.
I believe it'll still have to be in the packet, but I can send it out to you.
We would have already seen it at that point in a few days. It's in the package still, so we're like, oh, okay, we've already seen this. We'll look at the other 75 pages, but the X, number of pages we've already seen as a single item document.
This is some great feedback. I believe this will help us make things better, and that's the kind of conversation I wanted to have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably would have happened in our goal setting session, some sort of discussion, but weren't able to have that, and so that's, sorry, it turned into an agenda item.
That's usually, sad to say, that's one of the first things I look at when I do it. How many pages? I see this one here, 12 pages.
I appreciate that Jeremy thought that was something to bring up and make something out of. I mean, I think, he was trying to address a concern that he felt was there, and I'd rather have him do that more than have people feel like that they don't have time,
Well, absolutely.
On to other business. October 18th, planning. Here, right?
It's going to be here.
I thought you were gonna say, no, you build it. Oh,
Well, it probably won't be maybe the end of the month before we get moved in. We still got to get the computers and everything set up. But yes, it'll be here. Joint meeting, 6 o'clock.
Zoom?
Zoom, there will be a Zoom option, but it's going to be in person.
Yeah.
I'll try to get some options for food, because I know people will be coming off of work. So that's one less thing you have to worry about before you get here.
When you say food, that makes me think it's gonna be a long meeting.
Well, you were at the community meeting where we talked about the code.
Okay.
We're going to go into a little bit more detail.
Yes.
I'd say 60 to 90 minutes.
I will be.
Okay.
Community comments? We're gonna be going into executive session, probably be in there, I would say a good 30 minutes. Is that about right?
30 minutes to an hour.
30 minutes to an hour, okay. We'll be out to reconvene, the regular, meeting, if the decisions are made, but the executive session is, closed to the public. We're, in recess at 7:27.